Now, okay, sorry about that. A little bit of fidgeting around. I should start now. My little wheel is whirring. I don't like to see this.
But we can see.
Perfect. Okay. So the art of chunking. As you should all know, my name is Shane Pearson, transformational wellness coach and mentor. You probably know a little bit of, you've all know a little, at least a little bit about me already. And even Leanne, you know, I'm an experienced trainer of health and wellness coaches. Yeah, so the NLP, so I trained actually for several years, got really invested in NLP. And what we're covering tonight is from NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming. I'm a master practitioner and trainer of NLP. I was lucky and very fortunate to train with two of the co-founders of NLP, and some master practitioners. So I was really lucky in terms of and master trainers of my my study period with, and who I learned from. Also won this award a few years in a row. So tonight we're going to be looking at, first, at the formal instruction. Oh, I haven't updated a slide. That's caught me on that. That should say the art of chunking. Before you, those who joined earlier, we had a little bit of chat about that. Really, it's going to be about how to use chunking in your coaching. And it's not just your coaching, as a communication tool, and also how to kind of process information in your own mind. So let's just first of all look at what chunking is. So a definition of chunking: a cognitive process from NLP that involves breaking down information into smaller, manageable units or chunks. The longest journey starts with a single step, as the saying goes. But we can also chunk up. It's not always about breaking down. Sometimes it's about categorizing, or moving up as well, from chunking up, we call it, and probably you call it amalgamating smaller chunks of information. So this method enhances our cognitive efficiency by organizing data in a way that is easier to process, understand, and remember. In the context of coaching, it plays a pivotal role in facilitating effective communication, aiding goal setting, and enhancing overall problem-solving abilities. That's kind of a definition of it. But let me tell you a little bit about the history. So neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, it was all about curiosity. Could human genius be replicated? That's really where NLP came from. And in doing so, they started to study experts in their field. And from numerous experts, they started to just take things that they found really worked. And one of the things that, of course, they were very interested in how the mind worked, and how the mind could anybody replicate someone else's genius? That was kind of the curiosity they had, and the research went into it. And then they started to find that it could, and it could be done in a reliable and consistent way. So part of this they found is they took this concept of the magical number 7, plus or minus 2, in his paper. So George Miller was a prominent psychologist, and in his 1956 paper, he called it the magic number 7 plus or minus 2, some limits on our capacity for processing information. Okay, so what does that all mean? He found that no matter who it was, people tend to be only able to hold in their mind between 5 and 9 chunks of information at a time. Who here can remember their credit card number? And I haven't done any hypnosis yet, so just you don't have to tell me what it is, but can you remember it in your own mind? Or your telephone number? Can anyone remember a telephone number that's longer than 9 digits? Okay, how do you do that? So just read it out of your mind. Have you broken down into chunks, or do you remember as one bit of information?
I definitely chunk numbers.
Yeah, so we do this naturally. And what he found, like, if we tried to remember my telephone numbers at the start, oh, it's too much. There's a prefix, there's a kind of a bit in the middle. And once you break it into 4 pieces, some people remember their credit card number or their bank details. And they're often 12, 4, 16 numbers. too much. But if we break it into 4 fours, that seems easier. So this is kind of what's the limitation. So we're limited at most you can get to about 9 chunks of information holding in your mind at once, and then after that is just too much for the brain and it's overload. So this serves as a foundational principle in optimizing the way information is presented and processed to enhance understanding and facilitate positive behavioral change. So pretty useful in theory. Now let's see how to put it into action. So any questions so far? Okay, we're just kind of getting into the theory. It's really as how we do it most important tonight. So we can take any, in terms of chunking, how it happens, we can take anything we're talking about, and then we can, when we're talking about something, we're going to be talking about it at a certain level of abstraction. And what we mean by that is the amount of detail. And then if we're talking about something, we can chunk down into more specifics, or we can chunk up into higher levels of abstraction. So an example here on the page is sorry if I made an error here. Another error. So that should say cats, dogs, cows, not existence. And it's pretty hard for me to edit this at the moment. So let me see, is it possible? Yeah, that would be just too hard to ignore. Enough information to process without trying to convert something like existence into dogs. Okay. Sorry about that now. So let's say we're just talking about animals. Cats, dogs, cows are all examples of animals. So if you chunk down from animals, cats, dogs, cows, now we can think of dogs. So we're talking about dogs. We can chunk up to great higher levels of abstraction. So dogs are an example of what? Animals. What are animals an example of? You might say organisms, or in this case, it's life. And what is life an example of? Existence. Now, can anybody chunk up? What is existence an example of? Can anybody chunk up from existence? And it's okay if you can't, because we will hit a limit, and where the higher you go, like existence, higher maybe is a consciousness. But notice some of the physiology, if you can see the screens, is like people are going to go, oh, their eyes go up, and it's like, oh, we're kind of being lifted up into this kind of more abstract. It's like we're up in the clouds. So we can also then chunk down. So existence, so we can just go, what are examples of existence? Life. What are examples of life? Animals. What are examples of animals? Dogs. And if we chunk down from dogs, we get into more specifics. So what are classes and categories of dogs? You have sporting dogs, hound dogs. And then what's an example of a sporting dog? Is a golden retriever. What's an example of a hound? A beagle. What are parts of a dog? Parts of a dog include legs. What's parts of a leg is paws. What's parts of paws claws? What are parts of claws? You might get really technical. What's what are fingernails made out of again?
Keratin, collagen.
Exactly, good. And so what's keratin example? An example of keratin, is it protein or something? So we can get down in more and more detail. So notice how with anything, we could do that for a second. Anyone want to try this for, let's just have an example. What else could I think of? Someone else give us another topic that we can try and chunk up or down from to see, can we get the hang of this?
Cars.
Okay. Excuse me?
An easy one. Cars.
Cars, brilliant. Okay. So we can chunk up from cars. What are cars an example of?
Transport.
Okay. And what is transport an example of?
Infrastructure.
Okay. And what's infrastructure an example of?
I'm lost now.
Yeah, okay. So you can see we very quickly often hit a limit. Infrastructure might be an example. Who cares? It's not the point. We could infrastructure an example of there's no defined way. But chunk back down again. Okay, so where we start with cars. So what is an example? What is a specific example of a car? Who's here is in? Who's who? By the way, is any car lovers in the room?
No.
Aston Martin.
Aston Martin. Good. Okay. So we can go into Aston Martin. And so this, if we had a real an Aston Martin lover or a car expert, we go, ooh, what's an example of what? Give me a specific example of
Let's go to DB5, DB6, yeah, the classic.
Yeah, DB5, DB6. And now if you're getting really, if you're new someone with cars, give me an example of a DB5 or a DB6.
Does the color still go? Is that part of the chunking?
Yeah, so when you chunk down, you get a limit depending on your level of knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, if you have two people who are really into Aston Martins, they could go on. They go, oh well, the 1972, such an edition was it was overpowered and under bliss, but it had a really good drive. They've all that kind of detail. Now, we could all align. What could we all align on? We could all align on coaching. Are we all? Who here is a coaching in the area of health? So you're in agreement, but then. What kind of health coach are you? Give me an example. You can put in the chat box or come in. Let's do it verbally as a small group. What kind of a health coach are you? Anyone going to give me an example? Like I just said, I'm a transformational wellness coach. That's it could be a mindset coach.
Confidence coach.
Nutrition. Confidence coach. Good. So, and as you chunk down, you see what happened is become more specific. But when we become more specific, we lose a bit of rapport. We're not in agreement anymore. We were in agreement. We were all in agreement there as coaches, as health coaches, and then came down one more, and now there's difference. So, what we want to get good at is when we can control the level of abstraction, we can very quickly drill down into details and see how quickly we can with a car with coaching we can boom boom boom. We can get down into detail, but that's the more detailed you get, the more difference there is. And the more difference there is, the more details there are, which can be really interesting. But what happens is then we start to lose, we can lose rapport. Because if we keep going into details, has anybody ever had the experience where you got really into nutrition or coaching or maybe say health and wellness, and you're learning loads of stuff and you're passionate about it, and you start telling some of your friends about something only to realize after a while that they've glazed over, or that they're not appreciating the level of detail
all the time.
Excuse me?
All the time.
Yeah, okay. So often we had them, they're interested in eating well, but after you're talking about complex carbohydrates and blood sugar, they just lost them. They're too much the detail. So we can be aware that when we go down into, the more we know about something, the easier it is to go down into the details. But that's often then where the more difference there is, the more apart we are, and the less likely we are to stay in agreement. So how do we chunk up and how do we chunk down? Luckily for us all, it's simple but not easy. It's not always easy. So there's a few questions that will guarantee to help you to chunk up or chunk down. Let's start with chunking down from another topic. Well, actually, I'm from a farming background, so I could chunk down a fair bit on cows. Anybody else coming from a farming background?
No.
No, okay. So I could I could start talking about cows. We have beef cows and we have dairy cows. In the beef herd, we have, the continentals, and then we have the more kind of the traditional breeds. We have you get your Charlies, you have your Limousines from France, then you might have the British Hereford, the Aberdeen Angus, and then you might go into specific breeds of, or specific types of Charlie. You might have the steers, the heifers, the cows, the calves. So I could talk quite a lot about cows, but yeah, I don't want you all to glaze over too soon. I only want to give an example. So let's get back up to chunk. Let's talk about cows. We're all familiar with cows. Okay, so how can we chunk down? We can chunk down or chunk up from certain topics. And to chunk down, just really like really simple ones that you can use over and over and over in coaching is often often you're going to be using specifics to explore potentials and to drill down into details for actions, for accountability. So you will get a huge amount from just going who specifically, when specifically, how specifically, what specifically, with whom, for how long, how much, how many grams. You know, you can get into real details. And those specific questions, they just force us down into more details and more kind of concrete kind of answers, more very specific. What does that mean to you? Okay, I'm not too sure if that's true. What are examples of this? What are examples of this helps you bring you down? What are examples? For example, she stresses me out when it's our communication. We have a problem with communication that stresses me out. Give me an example of that. So often, a lot of time, a person is speaking in kind of more vague or abstract terms. Stressed, they're frustrated. To have these terms of in NLP, they're called in linguistics, they're called nominalizations. They're something we're experiencing, but it sounds like a thing. So like stress, frustration, anxiety. What is that in terms of behavior? When people go, oh, I'm stressed, or I'm anxious, or I've got anxiety, I'm frustrated. It's not that tangible. So a lot of time we can chunk down to find something more tangible, because coaches can't work with these things. The person can't work with these things that are just happening to them. So chunking down often brings into a behavior. So how does that show up for you? Or how does that, give me some examples of of things that stress you out? Or how do you know when you're stressed? So chunking down. So in terms of coaching, often we're going to be chunking down to find specific behaviors. Why? Because when you have a specific behavior, you can do something about it. If you're dealing with things like that are abstract, you kind of get, also notice that we can talk about stress. I can talk about, we all know what it feels like to be stressed, don't we? Who here is kind of stressed within the last week? Who here? Yeah, me too. Yeah, we could all get into agreement about, and it's so easy to be overwhelmed. Victoria spoke about overwhelm. Who here feels, wow, if you don't really keep on top of things, that overwhelm can take over pretty quick. Now, it sounds like we know we can stay in rapport, we can kind of stay in agreement and kind of, oh yeah, I know that too. So it's useful in terms of to being able to relate to someone. The danger is that I could be doing overwhelm very differently than you, or stress could be affecting me in very different ways, or what causes my stress or my overwhelm could be very different than yours. So we want to be able to, when we're listening in coaching, one thing we can be listening for is that kind of level of abstraction. Do I really know what that person is talking about? Sometimes we don't need to know, but when you start needing to know, we can ask the chunking down questions. Can you give me an example of that? Or when specifically? Or tell me about a specific time when that happened. And then that's going to bring into more details. More details is going to give you more information, and it's more tangible, more concrete. And then the person also starts to get more aware of what's happening. But then sometimes a person might be detail. I'm moving around here. So to chunk up again, a brilliant one to use in coaching. Why is that important for you? Often I'm going to be chunking up for motives. Why would we chunk up with motives? Either to get back in rapport with someone, or if we're kind of glazed over, we can kind of get back into to the point of agreement we were in. But a lot of time it's really powerful to be able to quickly understand, to elicit the motives, the values a person has. Why is that important to you? Why is that important to you? For what purpose do you want to make 10,000 per month? What is the intention? What is the intention here of putting all this extra effort in to get that body you're talking about, to get that really lean, fit body? What would that do for you? So we can chunk up, and the more we chunk up, the more abstract, but that's often where a lot of our values and the meaning we give things are. So this kind of chunking up and down, it gives you a kind of I call it a zoom finder. Think of I was actually in the car today and plugged in the coordinates and then followed that. Sometimes I just you zoom out to see how far you got to go, and sometimes you want to zoom right down to find out. All I need to know is, do I turn left or right? So this kind of chunking up, chunking down gives you that kind of control over a conversation. So you can go, right, let's take a backward view here. Let's take a step back here and look at things from high up, or look at things from a distance. That's like chunking up, seeing the big picture. And that can be very useful. It kind of gives you the whole landscape for the client. It helps them realize, oh yeah, to see the big picture. And then you can zoom in on something. So for what purpose? What is this an example of? If a person is telling you, the client might be telling you about specific, you ever notice a client who reports a lot in coaching? They're telling you about something, and they're in the details. They're telling you about something that happened yesterday, and or maybe a few things happened in the week. You can say, I'm after hearing 3 examples of these stressors, of these things anytime you're stressed. What are these three examples of? What are these examples of? And they can go, oh yeah, they're all an example of, poor communication. They're all an example of catastrophizing. They're all an example of blah. So that you can help a client chunk up, and then they realize, those things now didn't seem connected, seem connected. So what is an example of? For what purpose? What does that do for you? Is a beautiful question as well for coaching. What is the higher intention of that? And we're looking at that again in a minute.
Can you explain that? What does that do for you a bit more? Yeah.
So tell me, what does that do for you? So often it's when a person has, it's basically, it elicits a value or a motive of any specific behavior, a behavior that they're either they do or they don't want to do it. Can you think of an example of a client who has a behavior that they can't it's an unwanted behavior, or they can't shake it off, or they can't kind of change it? Exactly, yeah. So what does that do for you? Because often, and what you might experience with a client is they might be going, oh, I wish I didn't, they're smoking. I wish I didn't do that. I wish, it doesn't do anything for me, because they're thinking of the negative effect. They're thinking they're often very aware of the downside of the behavior. And if you ask them, what does it do for you? One, in a frame in NLP, is all behavior has a positive higher intention. So it's going to be doing something for the client. Secondary gains. It's kind of a way to explore secondary gains sometimes. Or if it's a positive behavior, what does that do for you? Going for a run in the morning, what does that do for your day? What does that do for you when you get the runs in the morning? Oh my God, it completely changes my outlook. So it's a way of kind of gaining awareness as to the benefits. And for example, if you can go chunk it up a higher, what does that do for you? And if you ask a person who wants to be consistent with maybe their morning meditation, what does morning meditation do for you? It kind of relaxes me. And what does that do for you? What does it do for you when you're more relaxed? Oh, well, when I'm more relaxed, I feel less stress. And when you're less stressed, what does that do for you? Well, then I feel under less pressure. And what does that do for you? When when I'm under less pressure, I feel more organized. I feel more on top of things, and I can be more productive. Brilliant. And when you're more productive, what does it do for you when you're more productive? Well, it kind of creates I get more done, and I feel better at the end of the day. Amazing. So, and when you feel better at the end of the day, what does that do for you? Well, I feel more satisfied, and I feel better, and I go to sleep happier, and then I wake up happier. So you might just say they use the same question. You're really exploring the benefits and the values it's hitting. Does that help, Victoria?
Yes, it does. And could you repeat that when you said in NLP, all behavior has positive, what were you?
A positive higher intention. I'll have time now. There's an important slide later on. Yeah, really important. And because people might doubt you, but I've been at this 15 years or so, and it's always come through. So things like the negative behavior, the negative behaviors that they're super consciously aware of, like smoking is a classic example. It doesn't do anything for me. No, it doesn't. It's no, but it's positive higher intention. And then by sticking to that, you'll elicit and soon they go, well, actually, yeah. They start to realize what it does for me. Well, or what it's trying, it's trying to give me stress relief, or you explore the intention. The results don't always have a positive intention that it's trying to get, but the intention is there. So very important to be able to chunk up to when you know that you can explore both the positive or the negative behaviors, knowing that higher up in the levels of abstraction, there's going to be positive intentions there. Really important for
is that kind of like what need is that meeting, like what need is that behavior meeting? So, you know, when you speak with clients and like that they're trying to let go of this habit, but it's meeting a need for them, like
exactly. And
is that the positive intention?
They may be completely unaware of that. This is how we can elicit it. Just think about what, and if you go, what does it do? Just think, okay, I know that you're very aware of a lot of the things, the negative effects, but what do you think, what might it do for you? Because you can refer to this, but in my experience, you know, we're always, every behavior, everything we're doing is trying to do something for us. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And so you're able to explore and elicit all those reasons, the motives, for both the good and the bad behavior, the effective and ineffective behaviors. So for what purpose? And I'll give you a few examples of how we can utilize this. Before I go there, though, in terms of the how, I can share this slide. I'll be sharing the slide with you anyway. And it's just those questions. Is there any questions on the questions, or anything else you want to ask me before we move on from the how, and just show you where we can apply it in coaching?
Just to kind of clarify, when you're chunking down, you're going into more maybe behaviors and actions and specifics, and then if you're chunking up, it's more towards intentions and values and purpose.
But yeah, so in context of coaching, most of the way I utilize it in coaching is behaviors and the consequences of behaviors, and then the higher up you go for the motives or the perceived benefits, the perceived or the potential the intended higher into higher intentions. There's something we call a higher intention reframe, which I use all the time now, and it's pure gold. And it works when you it's like I said, it's a foundational skill. When you get good at chunking, you can bring it in effortlessly into your coaching and very quickly understand, kind of map out, okay, the higher intention is this, but the consequence is this. And if it's a misalignment, you can often really help overcome resistance. I'll show that, and I'll talk about that in a later slide. Yeah, so to wrap it up, it's really, in terms of coaching, brilliant to use it. I'm going to talk about rapport in a minute, but excellent to use for motives, values, and then for getting more specific in actions, nailing down actions and accountability will be a simple but powerful way to use this. Another thing to think of in terms of rapport, because in terms of communication, as a rule of thumb in communication, you want to be speaking their language. So the coach, the responsibility of the coach is to be understood. So to be flexible in your communication. So in terms of NLP, we would try and match and mirror their preferred communication style. So in this context, a person may speak in maybe very detail oriented. Like, I'm an abstract thinker, and and I love to talk about concepts, and ideas and spend more time up in the higher realms. And someone else likes to be right down in the detail. And it's all about the devil is in the detail. So interesting that that's kind of a good counter to me, but we could lose rapport very quick. So if I'm talking to someone, and often in business, they're very kind of business, they're detail oriented. And if we get in with, more philosophical ideas, it can lose them very quickly. So by listening for the client's chunk size, are they detail oriented? How detail oriented are they? Are they talking about DB5s and DB6s? Or are they talking about Aston Martins? Or are they talking about cars? Or are they talking about vehicles? Or are they talking about transport? That kind of idea. And if we meet them there, we're able to we'll be in agreement. We'll be in rapport. But if we're talking at a different level of abstraction, we're talking about DB5s and they're talking about cars, it's going to be a mismatch. And then you're going to lose rapport and they can't really process the information very well. Another way to think about the chunk size is if a client speaks in small chunks. So if they say maybe a short sentence and stop. You probably have clients who are maybe clients who can speak for very long chunks. And you're going, well, how am I going to remember all this? So that's their preference. And you may struggle with that. And that's where we need to kind of expand to be able to hold all that information, kind of be able to process large chunks of information at a time. Or take control of it and ask them to kind of small it down a bit. But if you like to, maybe you know a lot about something and you might deliver a lot of your information in big packets, and they're used to speaking in smaller and listening in smaller chunk size of a sentence, you've lost them after a sentence or two. So a great way to think about this is, okay, just match them and meet them there. So if they kind of tend to be short sentences, try and match that. At least it's a start. But if they like longer pieces, if you're able to keep up with the longer chunks of information at a time, they're probably able to process similar amounts of information from you as well. But the mismatch would be short chunk, long chunk. Another way to use this in coaching is pace and lead. So if you're kind of playing, most of you probably have expertise and would be doing a certain amount of education in your coaching. Is that correct? Teaching, sharing knowledge, sharing some of your. So we want to kind of meet them where they're at, understand their current level of understanding about. And maybe they're talking about tell me more. What do you already know about carbohydrates? What do you already know about healthy eating? What do you already know about balancing your blood sugars? Kind of listen for where they're at, and then match them there. So if they're at a basic understanding, they're going to be at a higher chunk size. So you meet them there first, and then you try and kind of lead them into the next lower down. Okay, so it sounds to me like you've got a really good understanding of carbohydrates, which is fantastic. Have you ever heard of complex carbs versus simple carbs, or fast carbs versus slow carbs? Do they have that distinction yet? If they haven't got that distinction yet, you start to chunk down, and now they're going to have simple carbs or fast carbs, slow carbs, whatever way you want to call it. If they're already there, maybe you want to expand on that, and maybe you could use the glycemic index or something, or the glycemic load, to get into more detail. And some of them are much faster carbs than others. It's not just because a banana isn't really as evil as a coffee and a what would you call it, a Danish pastry or something loaded with sugar. So you can pace them in. But if you get into too much detail too soon, you're going to lose them. You won't have bridged them. You won't have led them there. So pace and lead. And then what you can also then is to make sure to reach agreement. Sometimes you'll lose a client, and with your awareness, you should see, with your observation skills, you should be able to notice that. And what I mean by lose a client, okay, say for example, and I'm going to use nutrition. I think some of you are coming from that background. and you're working with someone on their diet. They're in agreement. They want to reduce. They want to work on their blood sugars. They want to get rid of or if it's stress, they want to get rid of the stimulants. And they're in agreement. Yeah, okay, let's do this. You're kind of getting into the action phase, and you're making maybe suggestions, or you're kind of drawing up maybe a new breakfast. And then after a while, you realize, oh, they don't seem to be on board anymore. So you could check in and go, I seem to have lost you on when I mentioned cutting out your coffee or cutting the sugar out of your coffee. I seem to have lost you somewhere. Tell me when's the last time, you could ask him, when's the last time you felt like we were in the same wavelength? In fact, when's the last time you felt I was really helping you? And they would bring you back. You might have been with them on changing breakfast, but you might have lost them when you decided to try and get rid of some of the sugar or some of their favorites, some of their favorite treats, etc. So we can chunk back up to agreement. So we go, okay, sorry. Let's just recap here. We're both your goal here is to lose weight, and for that we spoke about balancing. What you want to do is avoid those cravings, and to do that we're talking about blood sugar balance, and that led us to the breakfast and some problems with breakfast. You might kind of get back to the level of breakfast. So let's leave coffee off for now. Let's leave the coffee and the sugar off for now, and explore. Are there other opportunities within changing your breakfast to explore? And I go, yeah, well, how about, so maybe you can talk about changing something else. Or you go, let's just leave breakfast and focus on another meal. Because you're still in agreement about making changes. So you can kind of keep focusing on that and try and make sure you're in agreement. Again, pace and lead. Any questions or anything you want to share or insights you're having so far?
No question, but just that this is really making sense, because I only had a client today who she's very, very specific, and she gets very into specific scenarios. And because I'm kind of new to this, as you said, I'm trying to take it all in, and I'm just kind of getting lost. So this is really helpful, like that thought of kind of chunking up, and or the fact that that might be the way that she likes to communicate. So, because today I was just feeling a bit like, where am I going here?
Okay, good. So remember, what we're trying to do is we're trying to control the conversation. And if it's not working, it's kind of, we're the experts. We should be the experts, and we're going to try and change it. So take back control, chunk it back up. Or you can even also, what you think, you can thank someone with detail. So you've got a really impressive level of detail there. But would it be okay with you if we just, you wouldn't say chunk up, if we kind of moved up and looked at what are those are an example? What is that an example of? If you needed to kind of get into a different chunk. So great, thanks for the feedback, Leanne. I'm glad to hear that. So chunking up. So another way is exploration. So let's not going to get into too much detail here. We've kind of covered already. When you're chunking for exploration in a coaching conversation, a lot of times you're going to be wondering, well, a lot of times you're going to be coaching for motivation. Why is that important to you? For what purpose? You might use these anyway, but that's to chunk up, chunking down, to not just for actions, but also possibilities. Sometimes they tell me more about that as a requesting clarification. It's not a specific chunking down question, but it often gets you more details, and it's a nice, gentle way to use in coaching. Tell me more about that, and that often leads to more details. Or then from the details they respond to in that, you can be able to chunk down. Okay, so what is an example of blah blah blah? And then more specifically, we'll talk about action in a minute. Brilliant for action stepping, brilliant for accountability. But sometimes it's just potentials. We can be exploring different paths, different potentials. Yeah, what would that be like for you? What do you think that might do? Motive. Tell me more about that. What would that look like in your life? If you were able to do more of that, what might that be like? And then start to imagine it. Okay. And so more specifically, yeah, tell me more about that. Who could you do that with? Where would you be doing that? How often would you be able to do that? And then another nice way in exploration is just to explore alternatives. A person might come up with an idea, a suggestion, and a potential action, a possibility. Okay, and sometimes we have a tendency to just go with that. Chunking across is kind of moving along the same level. So we're talking about animals, cow, dog, and cat. Maybe with the animals for example, we're over here with dogs. What else brings them, from the dog to the cow to the cat? We can explore alternatives. So a person might jump to, I need to take more exercise. I need to go to the gym. What else could you do to get more exercise in your life? Or, what else would bring more movement into your life? And then you go, I suppose I could, walk the dog, or maybe, or I could walk the dog more. I could walk to work. Or tell me more about that. Explore what else could you do, and what else are fantastic questions. You'd be amazed just how much you get from these. So that's chunking across. So in the mental model here, you're just going up, down, or across, depending on what. And then when you go across, sometimes you can then chunk down again into more specifics. Are you with me so far, everybody? Okay. To disrupt overwhelm. So classic example of overwhelm. Has anybody ever been coached on overwhelm, or just talking to a friend? There's so much going on. I had this experience very recently, and it just seemed insurmountable. It seemed like, I had so much to do, and you're busy fool. I have to work on this one. I've got so much to do, and then you sit down, you don't know what to do. Or you do end up spending time on something and doesn't really help the overwhelm. So disrupting well, it's just to think about that. We can only ever do one thing at a time. Now, some mums in a room, some of the females will go, wait a minute, that's a male cop out. But you can only ever focus on one thing at a time. You can get good at flipping from one to the other. So breaking everything down is a classic example of coaching. And it's brilliant. You can get so much from this in coaching, just helping make people feel, I feel so much better now. I have a plan and I know what I'm doing, and it feels much more realistic. So you probably do this already. So disrupt overwhelm. I would suggest before you get into the chunking, to first, use your human skills. FAVE is abbreviation to first acknowledge. Yeah, I can hear, I can really sense that overwhelm you're experiencing and validate it. And of course you're overwhelmed. You've got so much going on right now. It's a really stressful time for you. And then empathize. And I don't know what you're experiencing, but I know that when I feel overwhelmed and things just feel so much, it's like all that pressure. It's just a very uncomfortable place to be, and things can feel like too much. And I've even started to catastrophize, or it all feels too much. So I'm really sorry you're going through that, or let's just acknowledge that this is never easy. So first acknowledge, validate, then empathize, and use your active listening skills. Reflect back the feelings, request clarification. But when you have softened it a bit and they're more ready, if you do it too early, you could jump in and go, okay, it's okay. If you're overwhelmed, we just need to break it down. Be very practical. You don't have a chance to process the emotions behind it. So by giving that kind of space to allow the person to just feel better. Okay, I don't feel so bad now that I'm understood and heard. Then they're more ready to take it on. So just remember that, and then just chunking down. So to put this in context, you want to kind of categorize. There was someone today I was coaching, and they gave me, I listened for a long time. It was actually yesterday. I was, okay, so it sounds like there's three main areas you're talking about there. It sounds like there's three main categories or three main areas you're telling me about there. And that might be like chunk A, chunk B, chunk C. In this, it might be for example, in health or wellness coaching, it might be, okay, I know it certainly feels like a lot, but let's just look at everything that's going on for you. It sounds to me like there's kind of three areas that you're dealing with right now. And one of them is the pressure at work. Another one would be the responsibilities at home, and another one would be the lack of sleep. Is there anything else? Is there anything I've missed there that kind of covers it? Get an agreement. Now you got 3 chunks. Brilliant. Okay. So if you get agreement with those 3 chunks, you go, now you can chunk it, you can kind of chunk down any of them. So which one of those 3, which one would feel, where do you think you might get the most gains from, or might most be the easiest place to start to try and, to do something about the overwhelm? Well, if I could get my sleep back on track, I know that would be amazing. Okay. And do you think you get the sleep back on track without looking at the other areas, or would they need to be considered first? Well, to get the sleep on track, I'd really need to be more organized at home. So really, you might shift around. You can get prioritized by finding where the client might want to focus their energies primarily. You get the biggest gains. That's how I work. And okay, so you choose. Tell me which one of these chunks. There's the sleep at night, or getting more sleep, improving sleep. There is the pressure at work, and there's a responsibility at home. Which one how could I help you with? Which of those topics could I most help you with right now? Okay, I think the responsibilities at home might be the easiest one to get. Okay, let's talk about that. So tell me more about that, and then maybe from that you're able to do a similar process. Okay, from everything you've told me at home, there seems to be kind of 4 categories or 2 areas, and help to chunk it. And then okay, yeah, there is at home. There's the getting the kids to school. There's the all of the house. That might be the housework, or maybe cleaning the house. And then maybe it's some kind of admin. You might be able to break into 3 more, 4 more chunks. Brilliant. Okay. And you have kind of plotted out for them. And then you can ask, what specific tasks? What specific tasks, or what specific give me what has to be done, or tell me more about the responsibilities with getting the kids ready for school. You can chunk that down. And then from then you're getting to more and more specific behaviors. And that can help build a map. So you kind of know all this already, but you can just see how the structure we're using might be helping. Then you have the SMART criteria. You can know, so for coaching, and it comes into its own and chunking down. Who here knows the SMART criteria? Good. Starts with specific, right? So as a rule of thumb, when you're creating when you're coaching for actions or accountability, the more specific you are, the better. You cannot be too specific. It's amazing, just amazing when you get really into detail, how useful that is. And most of us stop a little bit too early in terms of chunking down. We think we've got it. Okay, you're going to walk the dog every morning. Brilliant. Okay. What do you need to walk the dog? Who will you walk? What do you need? When will you do it? What do you need? With whom? For how long? How many days in the week? What could get in the way? You can really drill into the detail. Now is the time when we're talking action to really drill into detail. What you want to do here is turn off mind reads. And that means making assumptions. Really, really easy to do. We are all meaning-making machines. That's our brain will fill in the gaps. So when we're talking about actions, it's very important to stay clean and let the client, you like a blank canvas in your mind, and you let them tell you how specifically the specific action, so you can almost imagine you doing it yourself. And if you're not clear, it's like, oh, so this is how I do it. I kind of go, I get them to tell me, I ask questions, get them to tell me exactly what's going to be done, when, where, and how. So I can imagine it being done. When that level of detail is there, the client can almost imagine himself being done. As often I've done, with coaching down specifics, and the clients, yeah. And then suddenly they go, you'll do it, okay, twice a week. When's a good time? Tuesday mornings and Thursday evening. And they go, wait a minute, Thursday evenings I have a class, or Tuesday mornings I walk the dog, or Tuesday mornings I meet Mary for lunch. And suddenly when you get into the detail, they realize there's a flaw in the perceived action. And they didn't realize at a higher level, walking the dog or taking exercise or taking it twice a week or taking it on Tuesday. When you get into the details, suddenly, boom, comes the barrier that you would not have realized was there until they, oh, Jesus, Tuesday I was supposed to walk. I was supposed to meet Mary, and now I'm supposed to be doing this as well. So when you get the action really, really clear, it's almost as if they've done it. if that's how clear it can be. And then it's almost certainly going to happen. Or you found the flaw and you have to redesign the action. And then accountability, by offering accountability, it's really useful for coaching. It adds, who here, your clients, I had a client today and he said he's going to do something and he did it this morning. He had all week to do it. He did it this morning because he's going to talk to his coach. So that's quite common. So accountability, when will you have this done by? So once you're clear on what they're going to do, when will you have it done by? Or how will you, this is a nice question for coaches, how will you know when it's done? And then to offer the accountability, would you like some help to make sure you follow through with that? And I spoke about this before, but to make it really kind of tight, my kind of accountability usually ends at something like, okay, if they're asking me for help, it's like, okay, so you say the latest you'll have this done by would be Thursday at 7:00 p.m. Okay, great. Will you let me know when it's done? And then I might go, okay, okay, great. I don't work that out of office hours on a Thursday, but tell you what, the earliest time that I could check, the earliest time I could check for that message would be Friday morning. So by Friday morning, definitely I will have that from you if it's done. Cool. Okay, so excellent. Okay, so I'm going to take a note to expect that from you by Friday morning at 10 a.m. And if I do get it, fantastic. I'll send you a quick messaging. I'll give you the thumbs up, or I'll acknowledge your success. Very coach-like what you say. How would you like me to handle it if it's not done? If I haven't received that notification, or if I haven't received that message? That's very coach-like. And that gives you now you know. Often we don't know what to do. We go, what to do now is a bit awkward. You ask them, how would you like me to respond to that if it's not done? And they might like, well, would you check up on me? If I find it works better, if you take more responsibility here. So usually then I have an agreement, which would be, okay, I'm going to send you if I haven't received it, I'll send you a quick nudge, and then it's up to you to tell me what happened. Often it's just enough of a reminder. So you get very specific, and now you have a clear agreement. You have a very specific action and a very specific agreement, and you know what to do, and they know what to do. And if it doesn't get done, you know how to respond to that. All very clear, all very specific, and that anybody questions on accountability? Okay, action, chunking down, getting specific. I'm a bit pedantic here, but it really, really works. And you can't. The next thing would be to this beautiful reframe that we kind of hinted at earlier on, is that for every behavior, we have a positive higher intention. And then for every behavior, there's also going to be a consequence or a result of that behavior. So I think I'm going to do another entire class on this at some stage, because it is pure gold. You get good at this, you can just overcome so much resistance sometimes in seconds and minutes. And sometimes it just helps gain awareness. So, for example, a person is struggling with going to bed early. So the behavior is that one to be going to bed at 10:30 and they're kind of up watching TV or something till half 11, 12. Okay. And so a quick way to map this out, chunking up and down, you can chunk up, what is the higher intention of staying up late? And they go, there's no real higher intention. And what does it do for you? It must do something for you, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it for you. You chunk up, you go, well, I get to spend a bit of time with my partner. Okay. I get to spend some time alone. I get to catch up on my latest favorite show. I get to whatever. Okay. And what does that do for you? Or what does that do for you? Well, when I connect with my partner, you feel more connected, feel more love. I feel more love. All right, I feel more connected. Okay, and what does feeling more connected do for you? I feel more secure. And what does feeling more secure do for you? It makes me feel happy. A lot of time we chunk up, we're going to get to something like happy, content, fulfilled. A lot of higher up, you're going to keep bumping into those same criteria. So chunk up quite high generally for a higher intention. And then, okay, so what I'm hearing here is that your reason you're going to bed late is because you get to spend more time watching it, and it gives you enjoyment, or it gets you connection, and the connection makes you feel secure, and that secure makes you feel happy. Great. And let's look at what is the consequence of staying up late. Well, I don't get to bed on time. And what's the consequence of that? Well, I don't get enough sleep. And what's the consequence of not getting enough sleep? The consequence of, well, then I feel tired and fatigued. And what's the consequence of feeling tired and fatigued? Well, I'm more irritable. I'm less productive. And what's the consequence of feeling more irritable? Well, I'm more cranky. Maybe I'm less tolerant of others. And how does that affect you? Well, it causes a problem in my relationship. Okay. So what I'm hearing here is that you're staying up late because you want to spend time with your partner to feel connected, so you can feel secure and feel happy. But what's happening is you're staying up late and you're getting tired and you're feeling cranky, and it's actually causing friction in the relationship because you're more irritable. And when you map it out like that, when you chunk up and chunk down, and the person can see it, you go, oh yeah. When there's a clear misalignment between the higher intention and the consequence, kind of the unconscious part of the brain goes, oh yeah. All you're doing is you're laying it out for the person to see their own mental model, and that kind of often is the eureka moment. Oh yeah, actually, it's supposed to make me feel more connected and secure, but it's making me feel less connected and in my relationship, and less secure because I'm more. Or maybe it's not staying with a partner. Maybe it's I want to stay up late to watch my favorite show because I enjoy it and it's me time and it makes me feel I feel like I'm enjoying myself, and I do that. What's the higher intention of enjoying yourself? To feel happy. Okay, what's the consequence? Again, it's about, well, I wake up, I'm hitting snooze. I don't get to do my morning. I don't get to do my morning routine, and I'm arriving to work without having breakfast and not fueled. And what's the consequence of that is I just feel crappy. And I feel crappy about myself. Okay, so you can then highlight. So it sounds to me like you kind of free playback. You're going to bed late because you want to stay up to enjoy yourself and give yourself that time to watch your show so you can enjoy it and be happy. But what's happening is you're staying up late and you're hitting snooze and you're skipping breakfast. You're driving to work on the back foot and you're feeling cranky and unfulfilled. Oh yeah. So that's a beautiful. So that's at that moment. Okay. Should we look at some other behaviors that might help you feel connected with your husband? Could we look at other behaviors that you could think of that might help you get more enjoyment? Or can we look at other ways that you can meet that need you have, to watch your favorite show? Or other ways you can meet that need to spend time with your partner to feel connected? That's the chunking across. Now that is when you get good. This is beautiful. Like this is sometimes it's kind of quite amazing what it does. So questions on the higher intention reframe: chunking up for intention, chunking down to behavior. Okay, cool. Well, that's kind of, we leave the formal instruction and move on to have a short break. Let me just stop the share. How about a short break? And when I come back, we could do some coaching, which I'm sure you'd like to see as well. Who here, anybody thinking of being a volunteer for some coaching after the break? Fingers in the buzzers. I can agree. Fantastic. Okay, great. When we come back from the break, let's have a short break, kind of 4 to 5 minute max. And when we go back, I'll coach you. Is there anything, just before we check, what could I coach you on tonight? Agree? Have you a certain topic?
Okay, I'm wondering if it's relevant, but restarting the business, coming back to it, I'm so hesitant to show up on social media, kind of putting it out there. I'm back, I'm here. So I don't know if it's relevant to John.
Perfect. Okay, let's go with that. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that one. So Let's take a very short refresh break, and when we come back, I'll coach Ingrid on that, and we'll have some time to unpack it and learn and observe, talk about what we observed and learned. Okay, see you in 5. Okay, I'm not sure that was a full 5 minutes yet, but while we're getting ready to start, Ingrid, would you tell me a little bit more before we get started in earnest about this coming back and a bit reluctant? It sounds like we're kind of reluctant on social media.
Yeah, it's just give it a bit of a pre-history on this. It's okay, so I had the coaching business kind of gearing up and going, was kind of quite on it, had clients and everything, and then I did pause it because I had another baby. I'm a mom of 3 very little kids. So now it's kind of, okay, you know, they're growing and everything, and I really miss this. I'm getting back to it. So while it's all and well to, you know, be getting my website going again, you know, SEOs and all those kind of things, all the technical parts of it, love it, enjoying, you know, but it's almost like that. I still feel like there's obviously the block, a bit of a resistance somewhere to, you know, kind of put it out there, like I'm back. I'm kind of, well, I can be saying it to people, but at the same time, you know, it's like on my old channels that were there before, talking, you know, let's say Facebook, Instagram, you know, LinkedIn, anything. It's like, I just feel like that. Yeah, it's a bit of a block there. And obviously, I know it's obviously, you know, lack of confidence, all of that, but kind of want to get through that, want to, want your magic of coaching there.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for volunteering. Okay, so what it sounds like we're kind of coaching you. There's a block you mentioned. There's been a congratulations on the baby, another baby.
Thank you.
And I'm back. And I know there's somebody said, you know, it's like reluctant just to go, I'm back. So you've done this before, but it's a matter of feeling ready or overcoming this block and getting back. Okay. So will we get stuck into, let's maybe go for 25-minute with buffer, maybe give a few more minutes if we really need it. 25 minutes, half an hour. Okay, can I ask everybody else to just turn off your videos? It just makes it easier for the 2 of us. So, okay, Ingrid, brilliant. Is there anything you need to feel present right now for the rest of this coaching conversation?
No, I'm here. I'm a minute.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so what is it you want to get coached on tonight, Ingrid? Yeah, let me just, is it just my internet? I'm okay. Okay, thanks for sharing that, Leanne. Hopefully she comes back in a moment. Okay, would anyone just like to open up your video so we have Shane back? Yeah, okay. So everybody else is.
You did freeze as well, though, for a moment.
I did. Okay, yeah, I did get a quick message here to say. So I might have lost Ingrid. Hopefully she'll be back. Just in case I need a backup, would anyone else like to avail of the opportunity for some free coaching? just in case. Natalie, your doggy is volunteering, I think.
Yeah. I will if nobody else has, but I'm trying to think of something. I've a lot that I want to work on.
Oh, great. Okay,
Trying to
perfect.
think of a specific thing that I need to work on. If nobody else has something.
Okay, that's your backup. Thank you very much, Leanne. I wonder, she's still on the line. I wonder if she anybody available in the chat.
I know, I wonder if she leaves and comes back. Maybe she might be back in a minute.
Yeah. Let's just give it another minute. Oh, in the meantime, anybody got any learnings, discoveries, questions on the chunking exercise?
It's just really useful for me because like you say, a bigger picture person, or maybe more coaching with like more a being person rather than a doing person. So when I come to planning, it's always really difficult, and I can quite easily get overwhelmed by talkative clients. So yeah, you covered a lot of points that were very helpful for me. Just that, refining down and detailing.
Okay, yeah. So when we're big pictures, like I can relate to that. Also, when someone coaches me, I really get them to nail me down in specifics, because that's my challenge. For other people, you can help someone who's detail oriented really come. I go, kind of seeing the wood from the trees. So even though it's more uncomfortable getting into the detail, you kind of it's often like the details. For example, I'm excited about a project or having to write it, and it's like, now it's the details. It gets a bit intimidating. But it's where that kind of counter is where what you need the most, really, at times, to giving you the flexibility, and also for your clients. Okay, let me see. Is Ingrid trying to contact me by email? And if not, maybe we'll move to you, Leanne. Okay, with the time available, we better keep moving.
I've tried to
okay, yeah. Is that something?
I've tried to contact her via Teams, and she says she's available, but she's not. So I know she's in South Africa and they have power cuts sometimes. So
okay.
Yeah.
Let me see if I stop the video. Oh yeah, no, she is still on the call. Okay, Leanne.
Hey.
Super. So Leanne, can you think of anything that you'd like to be coached on tonight?
Yeah, so one thing actually that came into my head, and it may or may not be relevant, is I recently started up breathwork classes, and I am going through kind of the same cycle that I tend to with everything. Is when I start, I feel really excited and really positive, and I can think of all the amazing ways that this is going to benefit people. But then when I get into it a bit, so I've done maybe 6 weeks now, that kind of inner critic comes in and is saying, like, I'm not good at it, and I don't have enough training, and I'm not providing value for people, and everything, the music isn't good, the pace isn't good. And it makes me then, or even if I'm writing like out of meditation, I'm like, I'm awful at this. And then it takes away the enjoyment of it. But it's a pattern that I go through with everything, literally everything. So.
Okay. So it sounds like you've got a great awareness there of a big pattern, and it's showing up for you right now in terms of the breathwork class. The initial excitement, and then now that was creeping in is that inner critic. I call it meeting the FUD, the fears, uncertainties, and doubts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taking the fun out of it, but it's perhaps an example, an opportunity to look at this bigger pattern in your life. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's definitely because I don't want it to do what it's done before and stop me. I'm
Okay.
determined to like get through it, but it's taking the fun out of it and taking the enjoyment out of it. So
Right. Okay, good. Um, so tell me that what would you like to get from the coaching? What would you like to leave with?
I suppose maybe like a strategy of like how do I stop it? Like how do I stop that kind of narrative constantly?
Hmm.
Um, I suppose my goal is to keep my eye on the value that I can provide. Like when I first started, I was thinking about all the benefits that I could provide, and logically I understand that as a beginner you're not going to be amazing at somebody who's been doing it 10, 20 years.
Mm.
So sorry, to come back to the question, what I'd like to kind of get of it is like how to stop that. So my next session, I'm doing them weekly, and I'm already dreading writing out the next meditation because it's yeah. So I'd like to enjoy the process and not be kind of bogged down with the inner critic.
Mm. Okay, so we're working on this bigger pattern, but it's showing up in the breath work right now. And I'm hearing the inner critic as a big part to play in this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that kind of, would it be fair to say that that's a major way how you prevent yourself from enjoying this and from keeping the in the past has prevented you from maintaining the trajectory to get to where you want to go.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And what you'd like to leave with is some kind of a strategy, was it?
Yeah, something to keep me like on that trajectory, like how to kind of disrupt that pattern, how to nip it in the bud.
Okay, so you're looking for some kind of strategy to disrupt the pattern being, if I called it self-sabotage, how was that land?
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
the pattern of self-sabotage. Okay. Um, and how would you know if we got there?
I would be feeling that kind of excitement and at ease again. I'd be more present during the breathwork classes. And yeah, just present with the people there and present in the flow instead of in my head and tense.
Okay, great. Well done. Thank you. So you're looking to, what would be really proof for you or with evidence for you that, you've disrupted the pattern would be if you're back in the class, but this time enjoying it again, not in your head, but more present with the class.
Yeah. And as well as when I'm writing out the plan for the class, so the meditations.
Oh, yeah.
Before I was like, thinking of all these ideas and really loving the process of writing out the meditations. So that's kind of what I want to get to. If I got to that place, it would be enjoying, and it wouldn't seem like such a pain in the ass. It's like I really enjoyed it before. So, but the past few weeks, it's more of a chore than anything.
Okay. So something changed. It was more enjoyable, more pleasurable, even writing it by yourself without the support of the group. But now something has changed and it's become much more of a labor and it's taking the fun out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me more about what it was like because you were enjoying it. You were doing everything you want. It's not a matter of, it sounds like it's only a matter of getting back to where you were and maintaining that rather than come up with something entirely new.
Yeah. So like that, I always think of my star sign. I'm not like mad into star signs, but I always think of, somebody told me before that Aries like to start things and they don't like to finish things. And I really related to that. Like I get really excited about new things and I'm
Mm.
full of this like new energy, and I really love it at the start, and I can think of all the positive things. So that's kind of, I'd love to be able to keep that going, and not that kind of fizzles out and the inner critic comes in and that self-sabotage. So yeah, I'd love to be able to keep that enjoyment in. Sorry, I don't know if that
Yeah.
answered the question. I'm a bit tired.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. So it sounds like you're really where, you know, starting Aries, but starting things is the fun bit, is exciting, but not so good at finishing things.
Mhm.
And the energy there, I think you mentioned it's all, it kind of sounded to me like at the start it was all positive.
Yeah.
But then there's something happened and it flips to, is it all negative or more negative, or how, tell me more about that kind of oscillation. It was all positive, it was all possibilities. And then,
Yeah, like at the start, it's like even when I have a new idea, like I find it hard to see the opposite side of it. Like I find it hard to be objective. It's like it's so positive. And then yeah, I don't know where it is that it flips. I don't, it's like, I think it is like an inner critic, like a self-doubt, or maybe it is like a protective thing, something telling me that, like, I don't know, something that's, I don't know what happens, but it's like something starts to pick apart, and just saying like people aren't getting anything out of it. And I don't know what it is or when that kind of, it flips over to the opposite side.
okay. So what I'm hearing there was the star is beautiful. It's all positive. And as you said, it's hard to be objective. It's so good. So it's almost like a drug, you know, it's like, ooh, euphoria.
Yeah.
And it sounds like when you're in that zone, you don't want this inner critic. The inner critic doesn't get a look in.
Yeah.
The critical, and the reason I'm saying this is, you know, the negative mind has a role, and like I said, to be objective, and it's important. But it sounds like you're over. It starts off on way, everything's good, everything's great, I'm excited, and things, the possibilities are endless. And then it's like, ooh, but then it gets to a point where the objectivity comes in, but in a very negative way.
Yeah.
So you're going from one to the other rather than a kind of a more balance. How does that land?
That's yeah, and it's that, it's like it's nearly overwhelming. That, sorry, excuse me, Shane, my dog is at the door. I'm just gonna let her in because she
Better.
won't stop running.
What's to meet Natalie's dog?
Sorry. Yeah, it's like, as what you said there, like the positive, I find it hard to see the negative, but it's like when that inner critic comes in, it's like I find it hard to remind myself of the positives again. It's like it's just constant, you know, that constant nitpicking of everything that could go wrong and that isn't right, and comparison to others. And yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I hear you. And I'm sorry because, you know, it's not nice when we're in that and experiencing that, and it takes a lot, like you say, it takes a lot of fun and enjoyment out of it. And you were doing so well, but it kind of sounds like you're, when at the start, this, can you see, is the start at the start that also a problem in other ways?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me
And this,
about that.
yeah, and it's only something that I'm become, the more that I go through this pattern, I realize I even do it with people. Like I swear, I do it with everything. It's like when I first meet somebody or I first start something, it's like everything's amazing. And then, but I see how that can be a problem as well, because it's nearly like it's too much, you know. It's like I feel like I need to take a step back and just take a breath, and yeah, just come back down to kind of reality a little bit, you know. It's like I have the rose tinted glasses at the start. Yeah, so yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Okay. Yeah, kind of like they're both the flip side of the same coin. And the pattern, but it's enticing at the start because everything's wonderful, but there's a problem there to start, because it's not, it sounds like it's not really objective either.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you're at a point where it's still not objective, it's all negative, or it's all inner critic, which isn't really the truth either.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't really based on, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, yeah.
And let me just check in. What are you taking so far from the conversation?
Well, that last kind of thing, you like, it's not the truth either, because I think that's what it really resonates with me. Like sometimes when I get that overwhelmed feeling, I kind of think, I'm like, am I, because it's like it's so negative, and then it's only now that I'm realizing that hyper positivity isn't real either, that kind of way. So what you're kind of saying, what was the thing you said about it's the same coin? So
yeah, the flip side of the same coin is it's just or the plus or minus, it's just polarities.
Yeah. So I'm kind of getting that of it's both sides. So it's not necessarily focusing on the negative side. Maybe it's correcting it before it starts. Like I know I've already started the breath work, but I'm
okay.
still going to it. So kind of balancing both sides out, I think.
Okay. So I hear you. You're realizing now the positive is that the positive start, even though it feels good, isn't really grounded in objective reality either.
Yeah.
And then when you're negative, you don't like the negative part, so it's more of a pain point. But they're both part of the problem in different ways.
Yeah. Because I'm now thinking, like at the start when you asked what is my goal, and I was like, I want to stay like that the whole time. But now I'm realizing, I'm like, sure, it probably wouldn't be possible, or realistic, because it's too up. And I'm actually only thinking now of a thing. So last night I had a breathwork session, and I got loads of compliments after, of people that came up to me, and they're like, wow, like that session was really good. And I had changed a few things, but I was so happy. I was like delighted with myself. But I did think when I got into the car, I was like, if you put power in their compliments, you put power in their criticisms.
Wow.
And I was like, I have to stop like putting so much emphasis on, I feel like I try to read everyone all the time during the sessions, or I'm trying to pick up on things, which isn't, it's great when people give you compliments, but if there's any silence, or if there's no compliments, I'm thinking, oh, that wasn't a good one. Or even though people could be just tired and different night, so that's kind of interesting. That my goal probably isn't to stay up at that level, because it's not doing me really any
Brilliant.
good.
Okay. So I'm really hearing the new awareness coming, and so maybe it's time to shift the original goal. What might be a more, now with that new awareness, what might be a more authentic goal, or a more relevant goal from the new awareness?
I think it's coming just into mind is just presence, like kind of just finding ways to be present, and not to kind of get carried away with that ego side, and like get carried away with feeding that ego, or that pain body, is the pain body being fed and everyone's against me and I'm protecting myself, or is the ego being fed where like everyone loves it? So I'm thinking kind of just trying ways to stay focused instead of being super happy and super great all the time, because like I'm still judging things that are outside of my control, really. So yeah.
Good. Okay. So finding ways to be present. Can I offer what kind of come into my mind as I think about this?
Please, yeah.
Like the image I kind of got was kind of like a polarity of a magnet, you know, and if the stronger you amplify the positive in a magnet, guess what? The negative gets just as strong.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is the realization, it's not all about being super positive, it's about being more present. And that's kind of like more neutral.
Yeah.
So tell me then, what would it do for you if you were more present and less kind of up and then down?
Just much less overwhelm. It's just less, like there's so much energy and headspace that's spent being up or being down, either one, you know. So, and I love the feeling of just being calm and being that kind of, that neutrality of, you know, I can't control what's outside of my control. I can only control my, you know, my reality now, and my experience. And if I have good intentions and I want to provide value, that's all I can control. I can't control how people receive that. So that's, I don't know if that answers that question, sorry.
It's all good. What I'm hearing, that one thing is pulling yourself back, being more present. What it will do for you, it saves a hell of a lot of headspace, I think you call it, you know, or both on the up and the down.
Sorry. So that's what it would give me, is that clearer headspace, that kind of
So clearer headspace. Now can you also realize that there might be temptation for the positive?
100%.
And there's also there's a pull. So there's like a push up and there's a pull down. And one, you know, both of them kind of have a charge. But you being present seems to be a way that, well, it's more efficient for headspace, and it frees up energy and it gives you a clearer headspace, which you really like. You like being calm.
I love, I love it. And I'm only actually thinking now how this is helping in relation to my Instagram as well. So I'm trying to build my business, but again, I go through the same patterns. So that just came to mind. It's again just taking that out of it and coming to a neutral space and being present.
Okay, brilliant. So you know, it sounds like you know how to become present. And that represents the neutral zone, or a more neutral zone. But it's a nice place to be. Okay. And let me check in. We were looking for a strategy. The goal kind of shifted. What are we trying to, what would you like to leave with now? We're coming up, like maybe we've got like 5 minutes or so left. What would you like to leave with her?
I know I kind of said a strategy a minute ago, but I kind of know what to do to get myself into that zone. Sorry, my dog's snoring. But I think just that realization of how that the goal isn't to be supercharged and super positive, and you know, that because it has that other side to it, and it has that other pull. And I can really see, just through this conversation now, I can really see how the highs have brought those really deeper, more like complicated, I wouldn't say lows, but just that overwhelm, and it's exhausting, like it really is. So I think focusing on putting myself in that neutral and that kind of calmer space, I think will do me the world of good to keep consistency with things, because that really, like, I don't want to stop the breathwork classes, and that's my fear, is that it's going to get too overwhelming and I'm not going to enjoy it at all because of, you know, my mind is quite busy with everything that I'm doing wrong. And I'm holding out for those weeks where people are like, oh, that was amazing. But I realize now I shouldn't be aiming for people singing my praises all the time, because that just shows that I'm really craving that deep down. So instead of focusing on trying to get people to have the best experience of their lives and give me loads of compliments, is just to focus on my intentions, focus on my intentions, make sure that I'm properly prepared for sessions, and that's all I can really do. So yeah, I think focusing on that instead of chasing that high and that, you know, supercharged energy, I think that's more beneficial.
Super. Okay. So the goal shifted a bit, and it kind of, rather than have a strategy, kind of like, you know, it sounds like you know how to do this.
Yeah.
And then as a coach, I'm also worried that knowing isn't enough, you know. So could we spend a few minutes on the action? What's actionable here?
Yeah.
And also, let me just highlight, when it's really about becoming consistent. And you mentioned focus, and if you can focus rather than on the being enticed into the good. No, I'm focused on putting myself in neutral so that I can stay calm, stay present, focus on what I can control, and leave the rest to, you know, whatever, because I want to be consistent and follow this through.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is actionable from all of this conversation?
So I think number one, I think what maybe I should do is, again, just sit down and become clear, say for instance with breathwork, and I'm thinking I could do it with Instagram as well, as become clear on what my intention is and what, you know, my value I want to give to people, and that kind of reason why I'm doing it. And maybe come up with some form of like affirmation that I can repeat to myself, just to remind myself that that's my purpose. Like, my purpose isn't to feed that super happy kind of ego thing. Another one would be I find reading, instead of like less screen time and reading, like if I go through a good period where I don't go on my phone in the morning and I read before bed, I find I'm a lot more positive and a lot more centered and grounded. And another one is outside first thing in the morning, like no matter what outside, whether it's like rain, hail, whatever it is, just to get out into the elements, I find very grounding. So that's 3 things. And I kind of already have my other breathwork practices, but I think they would be the differences of, I think like that affirmation piece is really important. So just refocusing on what my actual goal is with the breathwork. Like, it's not for praise and to be super happy all the time. And having an affirmation around that, and staying maybe away from that comparison, you know, less scrolling and more reading. I think that might help.
Okay, super. With the time available, is it okay to leave you with the reading and kind of as you might find a way to make that more consistent?
Yeah.
Less screen time, and then getting out in the morning.
Yeah.
And the other one was this kind of getting clear, and I think what I'm hearing, that the big kind of insight is change the focus. And the focus is less so on the ups, and focus on the actual goal, which is to kind of see it through and to start living more in the neutral zone.
Yeah.
So you can be present, calm, and consistent.
Yeah.
Can I pull you back to something I heard earlier on?
Mm-hmm.
I want to kind of really kind of congratulate you, because earlier on you said you caught yourself looking for the praise, or being kind of tickled by the praise, and tickled, but you kind of got enhanced by the praise. But really, oh, you even had that awareness before the conversation was coming in, wasn't it? That, oh yeah, if I really like this praise, it's going to have a downside too.
Yeah.
So you had that awareness already. So perhaps in moments like that, when you actually catch yourself with the temptation or of the praise or whatever is going to bring you up, what could you do in those moments?
In the moment. So if I'm getting praise, what can I do in those moments?
Yeah, well, where the temptation might be to go, whoa,
Yeah,
up or down.
Yeah.
What might be, yeah.
I suppose take a breath, and
Okay.
I suppose check in on my body. Like when I was getting that praise yesterday, it was like a tickle.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I was like really delighted.
Yeah.
And I was like visibly
Yeah.
shown how kind of delighted I was. And I was kind of like, okay,
Yes.
calm down. I was like, a puppy waiting for a treat or something, So
Yeah.
I suppose just checking in and recognizing, like, what is this? I suppose asking myself, like, what part of me is this feeding? And maybe sitting with that and journaling with that when I get home, and just saying, like, what, is this something that I'm kind of craving? Is there some support I can give myself, that I'm not looking for that kind of externally? Yeah,
Okay.
something like that. Is there anything you had
Okay,
in
so you
mind?
sound really resourceful. I think you're doing just fine. You sound incredibly resourceful to me. But could I also probably offer, could that same attitude, not attitude, that kind of same approach work when on the flip side, when the inner critic is at you, when the doubts and fears are there?
Yeah. That's actually, so true.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I know it's doing something. I know I think it's like a protection thing.
Right.
But I haven't looked into it. It's only something it's been built in the past few weeks. And this week I controlled it a bit by being extra prepared, but I knew it wasn't helpful. I was kind of masking it by over preparing myself, but I was still in that sense. So I suppose I could definitely journal on that and really look into, like, what is this trying to protect me from? Because I know it's there for a reason. I just don't know what it is. So that's something I can sit with.
So I'm kind of hearing there, it's kind of the same attitude is to catch the highs or the lows, or the temptations to go into either. Same approach, check in, come present, more in your body, you said, find out what's going on in your body, and then kind of take it off and journal and explore it and look for the motives, chunk up. And to understand it more. And all the while doing the things that you know are good for you in terms of being more present.
Yeah.
And all that. Okay. So do you feel like you got to where you wanted to go, what you wanted from the conversation?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So funny. I was expecting it to go another way. Like that, expecting, how do I stay super pumped and super motivated all the time? So yeah, no, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. And I feel a lot more calm, actually, because it's a lot of pressure thinking you have to be that elevated all the time. So it's a much nicer feeling, kind of releasing that control. So yeah, I definitely do. Thanks.
Thank you. Excellent. I was very happy to actually, just before we close it up, that last sentence was very powerful.
What did I say?
Yeah, it was. Oh, it just went blank. Before you said control, it's so unfortunate because you said something really, really nice there at the end. I'm hoping maybe
being
someone
elevated.
someone will help us out. Is I think I've just gone on to the next part. So really sorry, but I wanted to reflect that back, but I was just about to bring it to a close. So I'll apologize for my my mind gap. And
thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much
No,
for
thank you.
volunteering for a really excellent demonstration. Thank you, Leanne.
Thanks, Emil. Thank you. That was really helpful. I feel like the lucky one tonight.
Great. Okay, that's the advertisement for everyone else next time. Let's just open up the group. Leanne, would you like to share anything from your experience with the group? To any of you significant, it might be useful for us all to hear.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if this is useful, but for me, it was actually really useful. Is again, I was having like, I don't know, I haven't actually sat in a coaching session now for a little while. I finished my course a few months ago, and even then, I hadn't really clicked with a coach. So I just found that really interesting. Like I could see you thinking, and even just sitting with that, like, so I was, not that I was analyzing you, but I was just trying to picture like myself in a setting, and just, I suppose, sitting with it and allowing me to think about, you know, what my answers, but also you. Like, I just really enjoyed that kind of back and forth. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but I feel like I jump into things quite quickly. Okay. Like, say, if I'm even in a coaching session, like if I'm coaching a client, I feel like I am, you know, uncomfortable with silences, or I'm just trying to have the right thing to say all the time, and I'm not as comfortable just sitting back and going and kind of taking a moment. So that's one thing that I took from it. I don't, on your side or on my side, I just enjoyed that.
Thank you so much. I think that you're referring to kind of creating space and allowing the other, and also allowing your client to do the hard work for themselves, really. It's like a good coach has their client work hard.
Yeah.
So allows you kind of time to do that. Can anyone help me out with the last sentence she said? I'm up since 5:30 with kids here. It's been a long day, and I'm just like, I was like three things in the sense of and then it went blank. Doesn't matter if you went. Okay, yeah.
Was it the relief that you came to the conclusion was that this felt like a relief, that you didn't have to strive to always stay at this level?
Yes, it was about that. It was like, the pressure that you're coming off, the pressure that you're putting yourself to feel good all the time.
Yeah.
I was going to reflect something like that. So that in fact, that was one of the drawbacks even there in the, I want to be this all the time. I was going to reflect and see what came from that. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Okay. And what else? What learnings, discoveries, questions? What do you see? What did you observe? Any insights or questions?
Actually, it was just on the last point that you made there, was about the mind reading. Leanne, as you were saying that you were looking at Shane as he was asking you, and that mind reading is a big piece, especially when you're working with somebody, as we're often advised is the right word to do through coaching schools, is to, often, picture the person that you're going to work with. It's often the same person in the room type thing that you have that rapport with. And so you have someone who's describing something to you like, oh yeah, I so get it. I so have the same issues. Before you know it, you're 10 steps ahead of them, because it's so that you were saying there, Leanne, when you were looking at Shane, and you'd already come into the room with a preconceived idea about what the coaching was going to.
Yeah, 100%. And
that's on both sides is what I meant. It happens on both sides of the fence.
Yeah,
we can easily do the judge. Yeah, the turn off your. I was trying to learn this when I was studying NLP. Like, turn off your mind reads, and it was kind of drilled into us. And it's so easy to go, oh yeah, because I can relate to who here can relate to Leanne in some way, starting strong. So me, So the tendency is to, if we just go, I can relate to this, we can start filling in gaps and not, instead of really understanding it for her. or helping her understand it for herself, I should say. Anybody else? What I think in terms of coaching skill, what did you see? What questions? What would you have done something different yourself?
I just saw a lot of up and down and across going on. There's quite a lot of flexibility
Susie,
in the
do you mean in
chunking.
terms of chunking?
In terms of chunking, yeah, I think the chunking, obviously today's focus, it's just so versatile, isn't it? I mean, that's what you realise. There's just so many ways of creating rapport, creating that intention awareness, and there was a lot of, it's like the quick step, trying to kind of keep up with what Shane was doing. But it was really good, because you're trying to work out what's happening next. But I think it's about it's a kind of obviously a two-way experience that you're matching, like I say, creating that rapport and matching the way you're chunking, whether up and down, depending on what was happening in the conversation at the time, what was most important, what felt most important. That's what I was feeling anyway.
Can you remember any of the? Can you remember any of the times that I chunked up or down and how I did it? There's a specific example.
I think there was one. Yeah. Where was it? What do? There was one where you started having, what would that give you? There was a lot of what would that give you? It was the intention, focusing on the intention behind the desire not to go up and go down. And there was one bit, what would that do for you?
Chunking up for the.
And that kind of focused down into that. Well, it would give me, I'll be able to be present. And that kind of created that kind of narrative, I guess, of what I think Leanne's ended up with. That was really good. And then there was there was one where you crossed over as well. I can't remember, but it was like crossed over. But it was that was the one that jumped out for me.
Thank you. It's good to see the exercise being kind of covered in some way in coaching. So there was some of that. It is like I say, it's very versatile. And then when you're doing it, when you're kind of just I call it fluency, is unconsciously competent. You don't even know you're doing it. You're doing it, but almost unconsciously. Anybody else got any you want to ask or share on the coaching demo? Natalie, you're on mute, Natalie.
Shane and Leanne, thank you. That was really awesome. It was also a nice reminder when you said, as coaches, you said knowing's one thing, but what does that mean in action? And it's a good reminder, because you could easily just leave it as, oh, well, you assume she knows, she's a coach, whatever. But you drill down, again, chunking with action, accountability, of, well, what does that actually mean? What is the action step here? So that was a great reminder. It was cool. Thanks.
Yeah, and in other sessions, like we were very up in time there. She gave us some actions, clear an intention, repeat affirmations, reading less. I kind of, with the time available, I kind of left it to her. I got an agreement on that, but we could have really chunked down on any of those. That would typically, if I had more time, I would really chunk down on some of those. And that's again, kind of you choose. This is when you're working at the levels of abstraction, you choose where to leave off. Because if I started one of those, I'm thinking I could take 5 minutes a piece, and then we're going to something else. So it helps you prioritize as well. And often when you're early in your coaching, you go way over time. And I know you get to say, oh, time's up now, and I haven't covered what you want to do. So chunking is a great way to help you manage time. I didn't mention that earlier on.
Yeah. One thing I found actually was I really liked how you were comfortable in bringing it back, or how the chunking exercise, usually what I do in coaching is I feel like we're on a path and I just keep going down that path, even if I feel a little bit lost, because I'm conscious of, I don't know, maybe not looking like, oh, I'm going back here because I don't understand where we're going. But I think with that chunking now, I feel like I'd be more confident saying, actually, you know, can we go back here, and, you know, what does that give to you, and what, you know, go back to the higher intentions. Whereas I'm very kind of action focused. I just try to drill down and be like, what are you going to do? And so I really like that, how you were able to go back and forth with it a bit.
Yeah, and it's totally okay sometimes when you're kind of drilling down, you can, this is, we kind of follow a route, you know, and you're getting more into action and more into the final, like, and we want to be having an eye on action, otherwise nothing changes. But chunking, kind of coming back, and I like to offer is, I always play devil's advocate for no change. So I always go, why on earth do that? You know, you're kind of thinking that. So I'd say something like, let me just check in here, because it's so much easier not to change. And I know the hard change is hard, and pretty consistent change is really hard. So I often check back with motivation just to make sure they're sound. It's like, I remind, or even just to reinforce motivation. Remind me why this is important to you. And not, I might remember, but it helps them start to go to recall as well. And even if I don't remember, even if I don't remember, they'll tell me. But it's helping them reinforce. Oh yeah, the reason I'm doing this. So you're always trying to glue the actions, make it very clear between the actions, what they're doing, and why they're doing it. So the chunking up, chunking down, quickly back and forth is a nice way to reinforce those. I think I see them as threads between, oh yeah, I'm motivated to do it, and why I'm doing it, why I want to do it, and why I'm doing it. Because sometimes you need to pull on those threads. Oh yeah, it's really clear for me. Because like I mentioned, checked in with you, the temptation to go high. That's a really important time to check in and go, oh yeah, I could follow this, but so why? Because you're going to lose out on that drug. It's like, why don't you take the drug and feel amazing? Oh yeah, because it's a downside. I want to feel more present. I want to feel more consistent. I want to follow through. So thank you very much, Leanne. Great demonstration.
Thank you.
And thank you for being so authentic, and a great demonstration. We're going to close up on time. Sorry, we're up on time, so we're going to have to close up. I'll send out the slides in the recording if that's helpful tomorrow. And reach out to me by email if I can help in any way. And I might see you all, or some of you, on the next, one more in December, and then we'll start again in January with more Coach with Confidence masterclasses. I'd love some feedback, anything at all. You know, if anybody wants to share a bit of a review or share me some critical feedback or anything at all, I'd really appreciate that. So thank you all. Have a lovely evening. Thank you, Leanne. Thank you all so much. Thank you all for the contributions, as ever. And I'll see you when I see you.
Bye.
Thank you very
Bye.
much. Thank you very much.